They told me that Wall Street would never touch my favorite crypto. Well, just the other day, Nasdaq proved them wrong. Something huge just happened with Hedera's HBAR, and as a long-term HBAR holder, I'm still wrapping my head around it. So, here's the story. I woke up the other day to the news that felt like a plot twist in my crypto journey. Hedera Hashgraph, HBAR, just got welcomed onto Wall Street in a way that maybe I never actually expected. Now I'm talking about a full-fledged HBAR ETF launching on the Nasdaq. Yeah, the same Nasdaq where Apple and Tesla trade. Now if you hold HBAR or are just curious about how a relatively under-the-radar crypto made it to the big leagues, stick around here, because by the end of this video, you're going to see why this could be a game changer for HBAR, what it means for crypto adoption, and how it even ties into some other cool stuff that I'm experimenting with. Even, at least ever thought about earning crypto with your old smartphone? Yeah, we've got that covered too, right? There's a lot to unpack today, and trust me, you're going to want, at least won't want to miss the twist in this tale. All right, so let's get into this then, because I'm scrolling through my feed and I see Nasdaq lists Hedera ETF. Now, I honestly had to double check the date to make sure that it wasn't some kind of April Fool's joke. But no, it was indeed legit. Nasdaq officially listed something called the Canary HBAR ETF, the ticker symbol HBR. And it is trading as of Tuesday this week. Now, for those not fluent in Wall Street lingo, an ETF, an exchange-traded fund, is basically a stock that you can buy that represents an asset. Now, in this case, that asset is HBAR, the native token of the Hedera network. Now, why is that a big deal? It's because it means regular investors and big institutions can now get exposure to HBAR without fiddling with crypto exchanges or wallets. Right? They can just buy the HBAR or the HBR ETF in their brokerage account, just like any other stock. Now, this isn't some synthetic derivative or futures contract. No, it's the real deal, backed by actual HBAR tokens held in custody. In fact, the ETF's assets are stored with two heavyweights in crypto security, BitGo Trust Company and Coinbase Custody Trust Company. So, if you buy a share of this ETF, behind the scenes, there is real HBAR being held to back it all up. The ETF is set up by a company called Canary Capital and falls under a special Nasdaq Rule for digital asset products, Nasdaq Rule 5711D. Now, if you're curious, basically the SEC's way of overseeing crypto stuff. They're actually charging a management fee of 0.95% per year, which honestly is pretty decent for a digital asset fund with spot exposure. And Nasdaq announcement did come with the usual kind of caution that, hey, crypto can be crazy volatile, invest at your own risk. The kind of standard warning, if you will, because HBAR's price can swing like a roller coaster. But the key takeaway? This is a milestone. HBAR just got a seat at the Wall Street table. Now, as a long-term HBAR holder, this feels pretty huge. I remember back in the day when Hedera was this niche project that people wrote off because it wasn't real blockchain. It uses a hash graph, which is just a fun way of kind of explaining to parties, right? But I've hodled this through some pretty wild times. I've watched HBAR get some big partnerships and still not get the kind of spotlight that it actually deserved, right? And now there's an ETF on Nasdaq. It's almost like validation. The traditional finance world is finally saying, okay, Hedera, we see you. Now, of course, one ETF by itself isn't going to magically send HBAR's price to the moon overnight, but it does open the floodgates for a new class of investor. Big hedge funds, institutional players, even retirement accounts could be, in theory, put a little bit of money into HBAR now because it's packaged in a familiar regulated wrapper. Now, if you ask me, this could be a catalyst for some serious growth over the longer term. It really kind of puts HBAR on the map next to Bitcoin and Ethereum, which either have, or at least either have or are getting their own ETFs, put in the spotlight too. Now, in fact, Hedera's debut comes alongside a couple of other altcoin ETFs launching around the same time. I heard Solana and Litecoin are getting similar treatment this week too. So we're seeing a trend of these alternative cryptos entering the big leagues. But hold on, because the news doesn't stop at the ETF. While Wall Street was busy opening its doors to Hedera, the Hedera team was busy upgrading the tech behind the scenes. Just a couple of weeks ago, Hedera rolled out a major network update called 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗱. Now, I know that sounds like a droid from Star Wars, I get it, but it's actually a really important technical improvement. In plain English, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗱, it actually introduced something called batch transactions with native atomic execution. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, imagine that you're trying to do a whole bunch of things all at once on the blockchain. Say, mint some tokens, send someone a payment, right? And update a token's settings, right? Now, normally, you would do those things in separate steps. And if one step fails while the others succeed, you end up in a bit of a partial mess. Now, with this new feature, Hedera lets you bundle all of those actions into a single transaction that either completes successfully or, if one part fails, the whole thing would fail. It's an all or nothing deal. This is great because it actually reduces the chances of errors and makes complex operations much more efficient. For developers, this is actually a really big quality of life upgrade. It means less headaches when dealing with multiple step processes, and it can save time and resources. For the average user, you might not see it directly, but under the hood, it makes the network more robust and more user-friendly. It also shows that Hedera isn't just resting on its laurels, right? They're actually actively making the platform even better. On top of that, Hedera has been scoring some pretty impressive real-world use cases, right? One that really caught my eye was the announcement that came out not that long ago. The state of Wyoming, yes, as in the US state, is launching its own stablecoin, and they chose Hedera's network to do it, right? The stablecoin is called FRNT, as in FRNT, for short, Frontier, I believe, and it's actually fully backed by US dollars and even short-term government bonds. Now, the coolest part is this. The interest earned from those reserves will go to supporting Wyoming's public schools. So you have a crypto token funding education then. How awesome is that? And why is that significant for Hedera? Well, because it shows that governments and public institutions, they trust Hedera for serious, mission-critical projects. Now, this kind of trust was once reserved for the big names like Ethereum or maybe, Stellar Lumens. The fact that Hedera is in that kind of conversation now, it supports what essentially the first state-issued stablecoin in the US. That's a huge credibility boost. Now, if you add all of this up, Wall Street recognition via ETF, technical upgrades like 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗱, and real use cases like the Wyoming stablecoin, it paints a pretty bullish picture for Hedera's future. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. Now, a popular crypto analyst that I follow who goes by the name of 𝗗𝗂𝗋, I'm going to say Zach? I don't know. Anyway, recently kind of pointed out that HBAR's price has been stuck in a bit of a slump. Well, it was trading within a kind of descending channel, what felt like forever. Basically, we've just seen it kind of grinding downwards in a range, not very exciting, right? But Zach, he thinks that this trend might finally actually be about to change. He's observing HBAR and how it is gearing up for a breakout, and he estimates a potential jump of 50 to 60% upside if the momentum continues. That definitely caught my attention. I mean, who wouldn't like to see a nice jump and pump like that? But let me be super clear about one thing here. This might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, so we had to get that out of the way, you know the drill. So let's get back to HBAR's outlook here. Now, as a long-term holder, hearing a talk about big breakouts is rather exciting, but I also take it with a grain of salt. I've lived through enough of this is it moments in crypto that fizzled out. However, what feels different now is the convergence of factors that I've been talking about. Institutional access via an ETF, real-world adoption via things like FRNT, and, solid tech improvements, under the hood. It's like the stars are actually aligning a bit here for Hedera. So, what am I doing about all of this? Well, not drastically changing my strategy here. For one, I'm holding on to my HBAR as I have always been. My belief in Hedera's long-term potential hasn't changed. In fact, it's stronger than ever. Now, if the price stays reasonable, I might even accumulate a little bit more HBAR on some dips, which I'm planning to do probably over the next week or so. But I'm not FOMOing in or making any kind of reckless moves right away. Cautious optimism is kind of my mantra. Now, I promised you guys a bit of a twist earlier, something about earning crypto with smartphones. And it ties back to how I approach the crypto space alongside just holding coins like HBAR. So let me tell you about this experiment that I'm part of, and it's called Unity Notes. And if you've been around on the channel for a while, then you've probably heard me mention Unity before. Now, the idea is that Unity is pretty wild, right? You can turn your phone into a part of a global telecoms network and you can earn crypto rewards for it. In simple terms, it uses a mobile application to verify the telecoms grid. Basically, it makes actual calls to test network integrity. And by doing that, you actually help document network issues on chain and you get paid in crypto for it. This is actually a $1 trillion industry problem, by the way. And here is the kicker. You can choose which cryptocurrency you want to be paid in. They're not making a new coin just for this. No, you can choose what to be paid in, and things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, XRP, Polkadot. Maybe, if I can get hold of the team to convince them, maybe HBAR can be added to that list. Now, I was intrigued by this concept, so I went ahead and I bought a Unity Masternode NFT a while back. Each Unity node basically comes with 200 licenses, so think of them as like slots to connect up to 200 devices, mobile devices, to the network. Now, I'm not about to go ahead and set up 200 phones in my house here. That would be crazy. I'm going to start off small, probably around these 10 phones that you see on the desk just here, once the app goes live and everything is up and running. Consider it like a pilot test to see how things actually work in practice. And if it goes well and it actually earns a decent amount of crypto, then maybe I'll scale it up and use more of those licenses over time. And if it doesn't pan out, well, at least I tried something a little bit new and innovative. Now, my plan with Unity is to take whatever rewards I earn. Remember, I opted to get paid in things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, and XRP, right? And basically treat it like passive crypto drips. It's kind of like mining or staking, but using phones and an app instead of fancy mining rigs. It's a neat way to slowly accumulate more crypto without having to buy it directly outright. Now, I'm literally earning it by contributing to the network. Now, of course, nothing in life is truly free. I do have to cover things like keeping those phones powered and, of course, connected to the internet. And there is a subscription charge for the Unity app itself. And I have no delusions that this will make me rich overnight, right? It's about, it's just another experiment. And, I love exploring different crypto projects. And if you are curious, then definitely do your own research on Unity. I'll put some links in the description down below for their light paper and their rewards calculator so you can dig into all the details for yourselves. Now, I always encourage you to understand the nitty-gritty and all of this stuff to find the concept, at least if you do find this concept really interesting. Now, I've mentioned Unity in many videos before, so a lot of you know the concept and it isn't new. But I do want to share a little bit of an update because I actually purchased a second and third Unity node, of which, by the way, guys, there are only a limited number of these, and I believe they are selling out pretty fast right now. So you might be thinking, why on earth did I buy another two? Well, I'm glad that you asked because I got more licenses for myself, right? 200 per node is plenty, right? So I've got 200 that I'm experimenting with here, but I've got 400 more. So what can I do with them? Well, I'm going to lease them out to other people. See, Unity allows licenses, at least license owners like myself, to lease their unused licenses to other people via smart contracts. Now, you can set a split, meaning that if someone uses one of my licenses to run Unity app on their mobile phone, a portion of the rewards goes to them and a portion comes back to the channel here, right, as the node operator and owner. Now, it's all automated and it's all transparent. Now, I realize that there are plenty of people in the community who are curious about Unity, but maybe don't want to run, 200 devices for themselves or put down that kind of money on a full master node. So by leasing some of these licenses out, I can actually help those people get involved at a much smaller scale, maybe 5 or 10 phones, right? Now, they can test the waters by essentially renting a license from me, and we can both benefit from whatever crypto that license earns. Now, I think it's a pretty cool setup, right? It lowers the barrier to entry for other people and helps me make the most out of the licenses that I have that would maybe just sit idle otherwise. Now, I'm going to have more information about all of this down on our website and in our free educational Discord server, so do check out the description for the invite if you're not already in there. Now, if you are interested in trying out a Unity license, join the Discord. We'll find all the details that you can find down there, and you can ask any questions as well. We have a great community in the Discord, and we're all learning and as we kind of go with all of these kind of projects. All right, so let's bring this back to Hedera then to wrap things up, because we've got Hedera making waves in the institutional space with ETFs. We've got Hedera's tech and real-world adoption picking up steam. And meanwhile, I'm out here diversifying my crypto journey with projects like Unity and, importantly, making sure that I'm prepared for whatever comes next. Now, one thing that I've learned over the years is that crypto is that you need a plan A. You need a plan B, plan C, and maybe even a plan D. Now that includes having backup exchanges to use, especially when big news hits or the market gets crazy. For example, if HBAR suddenly pumps or dumps because of some news, then I want to be able to take profits or buy the dip. Now I don't want to be stuck unable to act because my one exchange is actually overloaded or temporarily down. That is why I sign up for a whole bunch of exchanges. You name it, right? I probably have an account there, right? Coinbase, Binance, Kraken, LBank, Blowfin, BitGet, you name it, KuCoin, right? I keep a whole roster of exchanges at the ready. Now, I've gone through the KYC verification on them all, right, where needed. And I even do small test trades occasionally just to make sure I know how things work and that everything works smoothly. Now, it might sound very excessive, but trust me here, the day one of your kind of go-to exchanges freezes, withdraws, or maybe it locks up under heavy traffic, you're going to be thankful that you actually have some backup options. In fact, I do have a link in the description to my website where I list all of the exchanges that I personally use. Now, those are affiliate links, by the way, which means if you do choose to sign up through them, then it does support the channel here at no extra cost to you. Now, I do truly appreciate anyone who uses those links, but there is no pressure. The main point is to have alternative exchanges, even if you don't use my links, although I would appreciate it. Right? Consider setting up at least a couple of different exchange accounts as insurance, right? It's just good practice in crypto. Now, we've even seen big exchanges have outages or maintenance during critical moments, so it does pay to be prepared. Now, as we kind of come to the end of this story, I'm feeling a mix of validation and excitement. Seeing Hedera, a project that I've believed in and stuck with, get this kind of spotlight is incredibly rewarding. It reinforces why I got into HBAR in the first place. At the same time, I know that the journey is far from over. Crypto is a roller coaster, and while today, we're celebrating an ETF and some awesome developments, tomorrow could bring something completely unexpected. That is part of the thrill and a part of the risk. My biggest takeaway from all of this is a reminder. Sometimes the things that will never happen eventually do actually happen, and they can happen faster than we actually think. Like getting Hedera, I should say, getting an ETF was one of those for me. It happened much faster than I was expecting. It felt out of reach, until it really wasn't. It makes me wonder what other impossible milestones might be just around the corner, right? For crypto, that is. For XRP or for any other altcoin, getting their kind of big break. Who really knows? One thing is for sure, though, I'm going to continue to keep my eyes open and my strategy rather flexible. I'm going to keep sharing these experiments with you, the wins and the fails, and the experiments just like, Unity and all of it, because we're all learning in this fast-moving space. Now, if you found this deep dive helpful, entertaining, or you want to join me for more of these kind of crypto adventures, you can do me a favor by hitting the like button and the subscribe button. And it really does help the channel out massively, and it ensures that you won't miss the next big story that we dive into. So thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you all in the next one.